New Jersey set to start their grooming program of their 7-year-olds. Yes, elementary kid as young as 7 years old. That plan is about to go into effect starting this upcoming fall of 2022 school year. But before we get into that topic, welcome to my channel. This is Bruce the Boss. And please do not forget to subscribe to this channel. Your subscriptions do go a long way with allowing me to produce new content, as well as raise the awareness and or allow YouTube to help promote alternative discussions and or topics on this platform. And your interactions on this channel also go a long way. So if you are already subscribed, please don't forget to smash on that like button, comment on this video, and please don't forget to share and smash that notification bell so you can get notified of my latest content. Now let's get into this. Now this was being reported by Fox News, Houston Keene, back on actually just this past Thursday, April the 7th, 2022, that again, New Jersey is set to require its second graders to learn about their gender identities in the fall, alarming some New Jersey parents, obviously. And a lot of this came out in, I believe, a school board meeting back on February the 22nd, according to this article. Now, it does go on to read that the lesson plans, which were given to parents, again, at the Westfield Board of Education's meeting back on February 22nd, include some of the following classroom agendas. One lesson plan includes, and I quote, the agenda topic is purple, pink, and blue, and I quote, instructs teachers to talk about or talk to their first graders. First graders. How old do you have to be for the first grade again? About average 5'6", about gender identity, and its first objective is to have the students to be able to define gender, gender identity, and gender role stereotypes. The lesson's second objective is to have students name at least 2 things they've been taught about gender role stereotypes and how those things may limit people of all genders. Gender identity is that feeling, and this is again coming straight from the agendas, lessons plan, and or resources that are going to be utilized by these first and second grade teachers apparently in New Jersey schools. So, and I quote, gender identity is that feeling of knowing your gender. You may feel like you're a boy, you might feel like you're a girl, end quote, the lesson plan states. And going on to quote, you might feel that you're a boy even if you have body parts that some people might tell you are girl parts. You might feel like you're a girl even if you have body parts that some people might tell you are boy parts, end quote. Well, if you have male genitalia, you're a male. And yes, if you have female genitalia and female reproductive organs inside of you, you are obviously a girl. If you have XY chromosomes, last I recall, again, you can find this in any biology book, at least up until maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago, XY chromosome indicates male, but I digress. And I quote, going on more into the lesson plan, and you might feel like you're a boy or girl, but you're a little bit of both. No matter how you feel, you're perfectly normal, end quote. Again, these are all part of the lesson plans to 6-year-olds, first graders who couldn't even spell the word gender, let alone define it without it being actually told to them, and then they just parrot it to their teacher. So this is going to be a part of the classroom indoctrination or discussion. Now on to the lesson plan for second graders. Another lesson plan for second graders is understanding our bodies, end quote, tells teachers to instruct students that there are some body parts that mostly just girls have and some parts that mostly just boys have, end quote. And I quote, being a boy or girl doesn't have to mean that you have those parts, but for most people, this is how their bodies are, end quote, the plan states. Quote, most people have a vulva and a vagina or a penis and testicles, but some people's bodies can be different. Your body is exactly what is right for you, end quote. The objective of this second grade lesson plan, including having children to be able to identify at least four body parts from female and male genitalia. We're not talking about ears, eyes, nose, mouth. We're talking about identifying male and female genitalia at second grade, aka 7-year-olds. So just as samples, this is just a small sample of the resources that will be made available and or can be instructed to the kids. I actually find it interesting that you have so many left-leaning media personalities, and not just people on the left though, but even self-identified libertarian commentators like Ravi Suave of The Hill Rising, who I sometimes question his true libertarian leanings, considering he goes way out of his way to align and or agree with those on the left and or the establishment media. But they try to claim that there's a conspiracy on the right, that they are just making this idea of sexualizing and or grooming kids in public schools up. That Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is just playing up to that made up fear and didn't really need to pass any legislation on protecting kids of an inappropriate age from this level of discourse and conversation in the public schools. But as you can see, this is really happening. I mean, again, most first graders are what, 6 years old? Second graders are on average 7, maybe at worst 8 if they have a late birthday due to some weird birthday rule that if you're born after September, you usually have to wait a little while longer. So yeah, at worst, a second grader might be 8 years old, and also excluding the scenario if they were left behind previously in previous grades, kindergarten or first grade. But again, you're mostly dealing with 6 and 7-year-olds. Again, I reiterate, they can barely read, write, and do basic addition and arithmetic. I'm like, they're literally, especially first graders, they're just now learning how to do 2 + 2 = 4. And second graders, they're just a few months removed from learning how to, learning that 2 + 2 = 4. They cannot spell the word gender on their own, let alone define it. Hence why this instruction is legit now forming them or teaching them what is gender for the very first time. And honestly, the only reason why they could even tell you what gender is because of how they were reared or programmed, whatever way you want to look at it, by their parents, by those around them in society, telling them you're a boy or you're a girl. And these kids are honestly just repeating it. They're just parroting what they've been told for the first 5, 6, 7 years of their life, or not counting their infant year, first 5.5 years of their life. And these kids, 6 and 7-year-olds, are so impressionable with such active imagination that they'll even believe themselves to be Power Rangers if they were exposed to watching that show all the time and believe that. I don't know how many times I used to believe that, oh, I'm Bruce Lee, I'm a ninja, I'm a Ronin warrior at the age of 9, 10, or believing that just because I put on a Batman costume that I could actually be Batman and jump rooftops. Again, such active imaginations, wild imaginations, and impressionable minds, they'll believe whatever they're told at that point. Now, it's funny, I remember growing up on the show Spider-Man, the animated series, and especially with the movie Morbius, one of the Spider-Man characters, vampire, by the way, with that movie coming out, when he was introduced on that cartoon show, not only was he not allowed to bite his victims, which is the way a vampire is supposed to drain your blood, but he wasn't even allowed to say the word blood. Instead, as I recall, he had to say the word, I crave plasma. And again, keep in mind, Spider-Man, the animated TV series, was rated TV PG, which meant maybe not appropriate for all ages, i.e. under the age of 10. Basically, they're saying there's something that might not be appropriate. How did we go from a time where you couldn't even say the word blood to a program where kids might be watching who are around the same age group? You couldn't even say blood. And yet they're allowed to be shown, discussed, and try to identify male and female genitalia. It's getting to the point where there is a active attempt of certain people in this world or a certain group who are trying to rear and talk to your, and are desperate to talk to your little 6 and 7-year-old kids, and maybe even younger, try to get them as young as 5 about sex. Again, this is not saying that you should get rid of sex education altogether from K to 12 when they're in school. No one's saying that, but rather age appropriate. Why are they so desperate to get these kids as young as they possibly can? Why is it so imperative not to wait until they actually hit puberty and develop some level of self-awareness about themselves before having these discussions where you're literally rearing and guiding them down the path as opposed to an active discussion? And again, at 6 and 7 years old, whatever happened to just focusing on math, reading, writing, elementary level science, and history, with a little physical education mixed in with that? Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to if a little 5 or 6-year-old raises in and asks the teacher, why does Tommy have 2 mommies? Why does Brittany have 2 daddies? And the teacher would just respond, I don't know, ask your parents. That's a discussion you should be having with your parents. And I don't remember ever asking at 6 or 7, my first or second grade teacher, hey, Miss Glover, what did you do over the weekend? Could have cared less. I was more interested in, did you watch the latest Batman animated series? Oh my God, the X-Men episode was so awesome. Morphin time, like that was the discussion. We barely wanted to pay attention to what was going on in the class, let alone care what the teacher's personal life was. And even if they've decided to share that content and or information, why not just say, oh yeah, I went kayaking over the weekend? Why do we need to know who you went kayaking with? And that just goes into my criticism of those who are critical of the bill in Florida signed by Ron DeSantis, that they mislabel us "Don't Say Gay," even though it clearly prohibits any discussion or classroom instruction on sexual orientation for preschool through 3rd grade. Pretty clear. Don't talk about sexual orientation to kids between the ages of 4 and 8. That's it. And even after that, when it does come to topics of sexual orientation after that age range, then it has to be age appropriate, meaning, okay, you can probably start talking about a little bit of sexual orientation as part of a sex ed curriculum in the 5th, 6th, 4th grade and on up. But again, make it age appropriate, i.e., you're not going to start showing genitalia to a bunch of 9 and 10-year-olds. You may wait until they become more so aware of those physical properties as their bodies start to change themselves through puberty. I mean, I don't remember learning about sex ed until the 7th grade, which point you're in junior high or middle school, whatever it is called. Again, at 6 and 7, it's starting, can't even say it's not a conspiracy to think that they're trying to groom and force the kids. Because again, at that age, they're so impressionable. So that level of self-awareness and that level of discussion does not exist. A kid would not know that they are transgender or, again, whatever gender you want to assign them without someone actually telling them. Again, that level of self-awareness does not exist. I do like philosophical lessons on gender roles and or gender role concepts, constructs, behaviors, at an age, again, when the kid can conceptualize it more, like who said a girl could not like combat sports, physical activities, and that she only had to like things like playing doll and house, and that boys only need to be interested in, again, physical activities, sports, war, fighting, combat, things like that, and couldn't actually be more interested in things like cooking, cleaning, housework, etc. I don't mind those conversations are not that bad to have at a, again, older age, because again, 4, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, they do not know anything about this. And so the fact that their minds are still so impressionable, and you get them at such a, you have them 5 days a week for hours and hours and hours on end, that your teacher basically becomes more of an influential factor than the parents, because by the time they get to the parent, they maybe only have a few hours with the kids. Most kids get out of school around 3 o'clock, maybe 2:45. Parents aren't even usually home by that point unless if they have work from home and or parents, work at home parents, or parents who are stay at home parents, essentially. But otherwise, let's say the average working parent is just probably getting off of work, and around the same time their kids are just getting home from school or home from daycare, the babysitter who got them shortly after school or shortly after their after school activities. So let's say the family is all home, or at least a parent is home with their kid finally together at around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon after they themselves get off of work. And again, at 5, 6, 7 years old, you would think that they would have a bedtime of roughly no later than 8 o'clock. And so they're already getting ready for bed shortly after eating dinner, as early as 7, 7:30. And so that really only leaves about, let's say they got home together at around 4:30, 5 o'clock. You're only talking about 3 hours with the kids at that point. We don't include the time when they're in bed and sleep at that point. And then you get all day Saturday and Sunday. The time spent with the teachers, it's not even comparable to the levels of instruction and time spent with the teachers compared to the parents. So who's really influencing or informing whose mind, again, at such a young, impressionable age? But I want to know what your thoughts are on what's going on here, and maybe I'll do a separate video on Ron DeSantis and the supposed Don't Say Gay bill later. But let me know what your thoughts are on what's going on in these schools. Is it time for parents to become more active in their school board meetings here, to become more vocal, but not so much so that you get yourself kicked out, but definitely let the school boards know and become more informed in what's going on? Is it time for parents to now start putting their kids in homeschool if charter school is not a viable option considering the limited space and the great number of individuals, kids trying to get into charter schools? Maybe it's time for homeschooling. Well, that's the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like this video, comment on this video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. This is Bruce the Boss, and I'm out. Peace.